All right, so welcome to another deep dive. And today we're going to get into something called the synergy PDE. Um, it's a theory that basically uses physics and math to try and explain like that power of human connection, especially physical intimacy. And I got to say, the source material is pretty dense, but stick with us. We're going to unpack the most fascinating bits, I promise.
Yeah, for sure. What I find really interesting is how this theory takes complex math, these equations called PDEs, or partial differential equations, and it tries to apply them to human interaction. So it's almost like using a scientific lens
Yeah.
to look at something that feels so personal and so emotional.
Yeah, it's wild. I mean, you're talking about energy fields and wave mechanics and all this stuff we usually think about with physics. But this theory is saying it's all happening in our relationships too. So how does it actually work? Does everyone have like their own synergy wave?
Yeah, that's basically the core idea, right? Imagine each of us having this unique energy field, sort of like a fingerprint, but energetic. That's your synergy wave.
Mm.
It's influenced by your DNA, your emotions, maybe even like bigger forces like planetary alignments. And that's where the PDEs come in. They're like these mathematical descriptions of how those fields kind of behave and change over time.
Okay, so a PDE is like a blueprint for your own unique energy field. And I'm guessing like blueprints, there's no perfect one out there, right?
Exactly. We all have areas where our energy field or synergy wave is strong and areas where it's a little bit weaker. Now think about what happens when two people come together. In a moment of intimacy, their energy fields overlap.
Okay, see, now that's where it gets really interesting. So you're not just talking about physical closeness, right? It's more like a merging of energy
Yeah,
fields.
exactly. The theory calls this a joint PDE environment, basically a new energy field, formed by the combination of both people's fields, and it's described by this new, more complex PDE that factors in both people's unique patterns.
Whoa, so even on an energetic level, we're literally creating something new when we connect with someone like that. But wait, I mean, this merging, it can either go really well or not so.
Yeah, that's where the whole concept of constructive and destructive interference comes into play. You can think of it kind of like sound waves. Sometimes they amplify each other,
Hmm.
creating this louder, richer sound. And then other times, they can kind of cancel each other out.
Gotcha. So with constructive interference, two people's energy fields could actually make each other stronger in certain areas. That's pretty amazing.
Yeah, that's exactly what the theory suggests. So let's say one person has a strong heart node, meaning they're naturally empathetic, right? And their partner, maybe they have a weaker heart node. Well, being close could actually strengthen the weaker person's empathy over time. It's like they're absorbing some of that energy from the other person.
Okay, but I know I've definitely been physically close to people and not suddenly become best friends or soulmates with them. So what makes the difference here? Why isn't every interaction this powerful exchange of energy? What's this theory say about that?
Well, I mean, think about it. Genuine intimacy is way more than just physical closeness, right? When you feel truly seen and accepted by someone, it creates a sense of safety and trust, and those emotions actually play a huge role in how our energy fields interact.
So you're saying emotions are like tuning the wave, making it clear.
Exactly. Trust, vulnerability, all those positive emotions, they basically reduce what the theory calls the noise in the energy exchange. It's like turning down the static on a radio so you can hear the music clearly. So suddenly, that signal between those two energy fields becomes much stronger.
Whoa, so you're saying even hormones like oxytocin, like the cuddle hormone, it's not just making us feel good, but it could actually be tuning our energy fields to be more receptive to another person.
That's exactly what this theory is proposing. It's connecting those dots between the emotional, the physical, even the biochemical,
Mm.
showing how they all contribute to this incredibly complex dance of energy exchange.
That's so wild. It makes you think about intimacy in a whole new way. It's not just about the feelings, there's this whole other energetic dimension at play. But I gotta ask, are these changes temporary? Or can they actually have a lasting impact? Like if I have a truly meaningful conversation with someone, does that mean my synergy wave is permanently changed?
That's a great question. And yeah, the theory actually addresses that head on. It suggests that even after a moment of intimacy ends, each person's synergy wave, it can retain some of those positive changes from the interaction.
Oh, wow. So it's like a little energetic souvenir, a memento of a connection that really did change you on some level.
Exactly. And it brings up this even more intriguing possibility. What if repeated meaningful intimacy could act like a type of wave training?
Wave training. Okay, hold on. You're saying our relationships could actually shape our energy fields over time.
That's what the theory seems to suggest. Imagine over time those weaker areas of your energy field gradually being strengthened through these interactions. Of course, we're not just talking about any encounter. True synergy requires trust, respect, a genuine willingness to connect. But the implication is pretty profound. Our relationships could be helping us to become more whole, more balanced, even on this energetic level.
Okay, my mind is officially blown. But earlier we talked about cosmic frequencies playing a role too. What does that even mean?
Right, so remember we were saying that each person's energy field is influenced by their DNA emotions and even these potentially larger forces at play. This theory is suggesting that we're all kind of swimming in this vast ocean of energy, influenced by these cosmic tides and currents that are honestly beyond our control.
So like planetary alignments, astrological stuff, you're saying that's woven into our energy fields too.
It's definitely one of the more out there aspects of the theory, but yeah, it suggests that those larger forces could be playing a role in how our individual energy fields interact with others. So it's like adding yet another layer of complexity to this already mind-boggling dance of energy exchange.
Wow. So it's not just about our individual energy, it's about these larger forces we can't control. That's a lot to think about.
Yeah, it is, and it's definitely fascinating. But I think what our listeners really want to know is, what does this all mean for us? How do we actually apply this theory to our own lives? I mean, it's not like we can just see our energy fields or measure their frequency or anything like that. So what do we do with all this?
That's the big question, right? And that's where things get really interesting. And that's actually where we'll pick up after a quick break.
All right, so we're back and ready to dive even deeper into this whole synergy wave thing. And before the break, we were talking about how these energy exchanges and relationships aren't always, sunshine and roses.
Mm-hmm.
There's like a potential downside too, right? Not all energy is a good energy. Exactly, yeah. Remember that idea of constructive interference where energy fields kind of amplify each other? Well, there's also this thing called destructive interference. It's like the flip side of that.
So instead of a beautiful harmony, you're saying it's more like a cosmic clash, like ouch.
Yeah, you could think of it that way.
Huh.
In those cases, instead of like boosting each other, the energy fields, they create this kind of friction or dissonance. And you might even feel drained or just like off after spending time with that person, even if you both have good intentions.
Totally, yeah. We've all had those relationships that just feel difficult no matter how much effort you put in. So are you saying that those could be like textbook examples of energy fields that just don't mesh well?
Yeah, that's kind of what the theory suggests. And it's
Yeah.
not about judging anyone's energy as good or bad or anything like that. It's more about recognizing that sometimes two people's energy fields just aren't that compatible.
Yeah.
It's kind of like trying to force two puzzle pieces together that just don't fit no matter how hard you try.
Right, right. It's like when you meet someone and you instantly feel this sense of ease and connection. Would you say that's an example of like constructive interference where those energy fields are just naturally in sync?
It's definitely a possibility, yeah. The theory suggests that those instant connection moments could be a result of a really strong resonance between two people's energy fields right from the get-go.
Okay, that makes sense. But then you have those relationships that like start off great and then they totally fizzle out. So could that be because the energy fields are shifting or becoming less compatible over time?
It's a super interesting question. And to be honest, the theory doesn't exactly offer simple answers for that. Our energy fields are so dynamic, they're influenced by, well, everything, our experiences, our emotions, even those cosmic frequencies we were talking about earlier. So they're constantly changing and evolving.
So it's not like we're just stuck with one energy pattern forever, right? There's always potential for change and growth and stuff.
Absolutely, yeah. I like to think of your energy field as kind of like a river. It's constantly flowing and adapting to the terrain, and just like a river carves new paths over time. Our energy fields can change and evolve through all our interactions and our experiences.
So we're all influencing each other's energy all the time, even if we don't realize it. Huh.
Yeah, precisely. And that brings us back to that idea of healing and growth within relationships, right? This theory suggests that by understanding all these dynamics, we can make choices about the connections we have.
Yeah.
And make choices that are going to actually support our well-being and help us evolve in positive ways.
So it's like we can be these like conscious gardeners of our own like energetic ecosystems. I love that.
I love that metaphor too. It really highlights how much agency we actually have.
Yeah.
We're not just passive recipients of energy from other people. We can actively cultivate those connections that nourish us and uplift us and help us grow.
I mean, that's really empowering, right? But let's get practical for a second. If I'm buying into this whole synergy wave idea, how do I actually use it in my everyday life? It's not like I can just, see my energy field or measure it or anything.
Yeah, true. And unfortunately, the theory doesn't really give us a step-by-step guidebook or anything. But it does offer us this framework for understanding it all.
Uh,
And it really points to our emotions as being kind of like a key indicator of how our energy is interacting with someone else's.
so, like, if you feel totally drained after hanging out with someone, that could be a sign that your energy fields aren't really jiving.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But if you feel energized and inspired after being with someone, it could be a sign of some pretty good alignment. So just pay attention to those subtle cues, those gut feelings. They're like little whispers from your energy field telling you something.
Oh, that's interesting. So, those gut feelings we all have about people, they could actually be our energy fields talking to us.
That's one way to think about it for sure. And by tuning into those feelings, we can make more conscious choices about the relationships we choose to nurture.
So, instead of just like ignoring those feelings of discomfort or unease, we can actually use them as information to help us decide who to spend time with and stuff.
Yeah, exactly. It's about becoming more aware of your own energetic needs and being mindful of how different people impact your energy field. Like, think of it as becoming really attuned to your own internal compass, your own energetic compass.
Yeah, I like that. That makes sense. But what about those cosmic frequencies we talked about earlier? How do we factor those in?
Right. So that's where things get a little bit more uh, complex, I guess you could say. Remember, we were saying that our energy fields are also influenced by those larger cosmic forces like planetary alignments and things like that. So it's kind of like we're all part of this like vast energetic web.
Yeah.
It's much bigger than just us.
So, like, we're all swimming in this ocean of energy, and our own personal waves are being, like, influenced by these cosmic tides and currents.
Yeah, that's a beautiful way to put it. And these cosmic influences, they can actually play a big role in our relationships too. Maybe two people's energy fields are really compatible because they're both aligned with like a harmonious cosmic frequency or something. Or maybe there's this cosmic clash going on that's creating a lot of tension between them. You never know.
Wow, so it's not just about our individual energy, it's about these bigger forces that are totally out of our control.
Yeah, exactly. It definitely adds another layer of complexity that we might not always understand, but it can also be really insightful. And maybe by becoming more aware of those cosmic influences, we can learn how to navigate them a little bit better. Ride the waves.
I mean, this whole theory is incredibly fascinating, but also a bit overwhelming, to be honest. It's like opening up this whole new dimension to human connection, and we haven't even touched on the healing potential yet.
That's right. And that's actually what we're going to explore when we come back for the final part of our deep dive. So stay tuned.
Okay, so welcome back to our deep dive into this synergy PDE thing. We've thrown a lot of complex ideas your way, but now I think it's time to talk about like what this all means for us. Like what can we actually do with this information?
Right. Yeah. It's time to move from theory to application. So let's explore how this whole idea of synergy waves could actually lead to personal growth and even healing within our relationships.
Okay, I'm into that. So one of the things that really stuck with me is this concept of wave training. Like the idea that if we have these repeated meaningful interactions with someone, it could actually strengthen those weaker areas in our energy fields.
Exactly. And the theory suggests that consistently engaging in those connections that are built on trust, vulnerability, open-heartedness, that kind of stuff, it can gradually lead to some really positive changes in our own energy patterns.
So it's not just about those fleeting moments of connection, right? It's like we're talking about building a practice of mindful intimacy over time.
Yeah, precisely. And that practice, it can have some seriously profound effects on our well-being.
Yeah.
The theory suggests that by strengthening specific, what they call nodes in our energy field, we might actually be able to enhance certain qualities or abilities within ourselves.
Oh, interesting. Okay, so give me an example. Like, let's say someone has a really hard time with empathy. They have a weak heart node, as the theory calls it. So if they spend a lot of time with someone who has a really strong heart node, could that actually help them develop more empathy over time?
Yeah, that's the idea. It's almost like a form of energetic mentorship,
Yeah.
where we're actually learning and growing from those strengths of the people around us.
Whoa, that's kind of wild. So it's like our relationships become these opportunities for personal transformation, huh? We're not just looking for companionship, but also growth and healing and all that.
It really does reframe how we think about connection, right? And it also kind of highlights how important it is to choose those relationships carefully.
Yeah, because if we're constantly surrounded by people who just drain our energy or maybe even reinforce those like negative patterns, it's going to be a lot harder to grow and evolve, right?
Right, exactly. And it works the other way too. When we surround ourselves with people who lift us up, inspire us and challenge us in healthy ways, it can really accelerate our personal growth and help us become like the best versions of ourselves.
Okay, I'm totally on board with that. So it's not about finding people with those perfect synergy waves, right? It's more about finding people whose energy like complements our own and supports us on our own journeys.
Exactly. And it's important to remember that this whole thing is a two-way street. We're not just receiving energy from other people, we're also giving it back. It's this constant exchange.
So we're trying to find that sweet spot of mutual exchange where both people feel nourished and empowered by the connection.
Yeah, that's the goal. And it kind of brings us back to those foundational elements of trust, respect, consent. For this whole energetic exchange to be truly beneficial, it needs to be grounded in genuine care and that mutual willingness.
Yeah, I mean, forced or manipulative connections, those aren't going to create that kind of harmonious synergy that leads to growth and healing, right?
Absolutely. It's super important to recognize that we all have our own unique energetic boundaries,
Yeah.
right? And honoring those boundaries is essential for true synergy to even happen.
I gotta say, this whole conversation has been incredibly eye-opening. Like, I'm seriously looking at my relationships in a whole new light.
And that's the power of exploring these kinds of theories.
Yeah.
They push us to think outside the box and really explore these hidden dimensions of what it means to be human.
I love that. So, as we wrap up this episode, what's like the one key takeaway you hope listeners will walk away with?
I hope they'll remember that we're all interconnected. And not just on a physical level or even an emotional level, but like we've been saying on an energetic level too. And through conscious, intentional connections, we really do have the power to heal ourselves, uplift others, and create, honestly, a more harmonious world.
That's beautiful. It's like a reminder that we're all part of something much bigger than ourselves. And even our smallest actions and choices can create these ripple effects throughout this whole web of life?
Exactly. And maybe as we become more aware of all these like subtle energetic dynamics that we've been talking about, we can actually unlock even greater potential for healing and transformation, both within ourselves and in our relationships.
Wow, what a powerful thought to end on. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive into the wild world of the Synergy PDE.
It's been a pleasure, really. I always love getting to explore these ideas, especially with you.
And to all our amazing listeners out there, we encourage you to keep pondering the implications of this theory and how it might apply to your own lives. Until next time, keep diving deep and stay curious.